Hi, Jasmine. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. Nice to see your face,
Yours
both of
as
you.
well. So, we've been really excited about this because Zulai and I have been talking for a while. We have a lot of questions for you, but we've been talking a lot about shedding some more light on not just like pronouns, but having a conversation around the LGBTQAI plus community, understanding the pronouns and understanding the conversation so we don't ever offend anyone. And because you are a parent of a trans son, and you're a writer and an activist and a speaker and a philanthropist and all of these incredible.
Sure. I was going to say we need to do a proper intro.
Exactly.
That's incredible. Jasmine, you're a writer. You're a producer. You are an activist in so many different capacities. You advocate for obviously the Latino, the Black and Brown community, but you're also in this world. And I'm going to say that I'm going to try and say it all without stopping. LGBTQ plus.
LGBTQIA plus.
IA plus. See, this is why we're having this conversation. Because I don't want to be that person that's like LGBTQIA plus. I got it. Can you explain to us how that keeps changing and how we can stay abreast, and what are the resources that people who are like myself, admittedly, constantly stumped and constantly, quite frankly, embarrassed a little bit that I'm so behind the curb on this, and I'm not really actualized in the conversation. So I'm going to be a student, and I'm going to let you and Julie, because Julie is a little bit more well-versed. So I'm just a student, and you guys take it from here. I just wanted to make sure that we explain Jasmine's involvement and how awesome in every way that you're involved in just pushing our community forward and being a voice of excellence in all these capacities. So thank you for being here. We really appreciate your time. And you guys go. I'm going to listen and be a student, maybe take notes.
Firstly, Zulai, I want to thank you and Julie for this platform and allowing, really in creating a space, because that's where the work is, right? The work is in looking outside of ourselves and our own lived experiences to really hone in and welcome more voices. And I think that naturally you two do that. Not only are you creatives as well in your own right, actors and also writers. I think it's really important for us to be able to make sure we create this space. And so I please, what I noticed and what I really love this type of back and forth. So anytime there's any embarrassment or anything like that, I used to teach English to Spanish speakers, or called ELD, and I also teach Spanish to your regular run of the mill like high school kids. And every time they tried to speak the language, they would be like sort of afraid. I'm like, no, it's a language, and we're always learning, and it's something that it evolves over time. And to your point, just like the LGBTQIA, like I was sort of thrusted on it. I was always an ally. I was always like, I'm from New York. I'm from the Bronx. You can't walk across the street without seeing a member of the LGBTQIA community. And so for me, it was I saw people every day, but I didn't know that that I was going to be a parent to one of these individuals. And to be honest, was such a growing experience and very humbling, because one look at me, it's like, oh, she's a woman of color, oh, she and a woman, and of course she's the most woke of them all. And I thought the same thing, but I'm not, and I wasn't, and I'm still learning, and every day I learn. And my trans son, we're at a point where we can have a conversation about it. Admittedly, I wasn't so open before, and not because in any way it wasn't because I was a hater. I just didn't know where to start. And I think as parents, when we are caught without an answer, that really, at least for me, it truly made me aware of my unpreparedness. And then unfortunately, as just a regular basic human, I took that out on my kid naturally. And I hate to say it just like that, because it's not naturally. It shouldn't be something that we go on, without being checked. And I think that that's why we have these wonderful beings, and our kids now we're in a position now where we have resources. And every day I learn, it's about wanting to learn, just like you two, with not only with this platform. That's what it is. So
you and I had spoke before about this, and you just reminded me of really something important that came up in that conversation. But as parents, you automatically want the road for your children to be the smoothest, right? We're natural protectors. So I can imagine when your child says, I want to transition to another gender, I'm not identifying as this. And in my own experience, I've had experience with this as well. I have 2 daughters, and they come home and they want to identify differently. Their friends want to identify differently, which I think is a beautiful thing. I think, society and culture is waking up that we don't just have to be straight in order to have great lives and to be incredible people, but the road still needs to be paved, right? So we have a child that identifies LGBTQAI plus. What was your first response to that? What did that story look like, and where has it brought you and your son to now?
Well, first of all, Julie, yes, you did remind me of that story, that conversation we had about having wanting the most smoothest road for your kid, and that's how I thought I was talking to my kid when my son, my son was assigned female at birth, and so when we were having those conversations, it wasn't that he at the time knew that he was trans. We definitely went all up and down the LGBTQIA spectrum, including actually him having no gender or even being pan for a while. And that's, to me, was difficult to understand. I'll out myself here and say that I thought it was a choice, and some people will say it is a choice, and some people say that it's as natural as breathing, so it's not a choice. And so that sort of part of it all, because society places so much on teens, and it's like, do you think it's a phase, or is it something that you go through, and will they grow out of it? And I didn't want to be a closed-minded parent. I certainly, living here in California, I certainly had an open mind, and my family wasn't so open. I come from a very traditional Latino family, and I even had one member of my family say, throw a dress on your daughter. It's like, well,
wow,
or put lipstick on, first of all, I'm not that model parent. I'm not like that. I have lipstick on. I have a dress on today. That's lucky. Like, my husband's like, where are you going? Like, I was like, oh,
on social life.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think, do I have lipstick on my teeth? I think
we can't see it if you do.
I know. I have
beautiful
braces, but thank you. I'm doing this to my lips a lot, but at any rate, no, with my kid, with my son, it wasn't so smooth. The road at first he was discovering who he was, and gender dysphoria, at least as the medical field calls it, it really manifests in so many different ways. We were very understanding parents by comparison to others, yet we still had a lot to learn, and we still even do. And I say that with all the humility in the world. I didn't used to say that with humility. I used to say, I know my kid. I know how to parent. Like, because you don't want to be caught off guard as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
at least I didn't. I wanted to, I thought I was ready. I mean, I'm an A-type personality, whatever that means, right? I over prepare for everything all the time. And I thought I was prepared for parenting. And this was a curveball. Like my kid suddenly, going from, I think I'm gay, to I don't want to have a gender, to eventually wanting to transition to another gender. And so, but there was no one for him to talk to, a peer or anything like that. And so that I think was the hardest, is to be a parent to somebody who had a lot of questions. And we went through hell, you guys. So like, yeah. I don't want to go too personal, but probably the worst things that you can think of that a kid can do to their parent and a parent can do to their kid. Think about that. We did that. That happened. It was a lot of pouting on both sides. There was, running away is a thing. It's a big thing. Sending your kid away, that's a thing. I mean, there's so many things, but there are equally that much that like, there's so many resources. And I'm so grateful to be in a state where, like, not a state of being, but like the state of California. Hold on, I'm gonna move this camera. I'm sorry. I think it could see down my blouse, and I don't want it to see down my blouse. I'm like, oh, what's going on? What show is this? What are we doing here? I
like it.
But the thing is, I mean, I do like my little dress here. It's cute.
So pretty.
My little kimono thing. But anyway, I digress. The thing is, and you know what? Like, there are organizations like GLSEN. So GLSEN is spelled GLSEN. GLSEN is, they've been around for decades now, and it's run by Dr. Eliza Bayard and Greg Berlanti, who's a showrunner and an amazing ally and a friend,
really?
told me about them. And he supports them. And they're a tremendous organization, and they worked with me to help. My kid was being bullied in school, in high school, because my kid at the time was not male presenting, but wasn't sure of his journey yet.
That was the question, Jasmine. Can I stop you for a second? At what age did this begin, or when did you start having? And you mentioned, and again, you mentioned you went through not having gender, being pan, and now to trans. Mm-hmm. Can you explain those three?
Yes.
Thank you. Because I'm going to take out, I want to understand fully, and I want to.
Yeah.
At what age did you start noticing?
Yeah. So I think as parents, we know. Like, if there's a doubt, if there's a question, just be open and start. And at that point, that's when you should start reading, and that's when you should start educating yourself. So my kid, at the age of 3, was interested in only, because they know themselves more than anybody. They're perfect beings. Yeah, they're perfect beings. They come into this world perfect, and then the world makes them, imperfect, and we make them imperfect. And so my kid knew themselves. And when my kid is 19 now, so he was 19. I have memories of him as, assigned at birth female, as a little girl. So when he was little, he would always wear, like around age 3, he was not interested in identifying with the color scheme and things of other girls. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of that type of mom too. I'm kind of a tomboy. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, high five. We're going to hang out. We're going to go shop at the men's section, like I was just fine with it, like hiding my unshaven legs under pants. That's fine with me. I don't care. And now they're hiding, under the, I have pants on, but they're hiding here. Anyway.
I'm hiding in a bodysuit too, because I'm pregnant. I can't see anything beyond.
Oh no, yeah, it's so cute, huh? It's so cute. I
don't know what's going on below my belly.
That's so funny. That's really funny. Yeah. My kid would always wear like boy clothes. Would always we'd go shopping at Target or like, I don't know, like the mall or something. my kid would always want whatever it was.
Oh no.
And because a child, if you have a little girl and they dress like a tomboy, so he's like, I got you. Like, look how cute. You know, it's like a thing, and it's so cute. But the second that they're like, I don't know, old. So when my kid was about 9, he was Pan, and Pan, I would say, even it's interesting because it comes from the word Peter Pan.
No way.
Which is, huh?
I didn't
know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, which is, if you look at Peter, he, even though Peter Pan is, identifies as male and is like, I guess, a male, he is seen more as a being of happiness, a representation of that. And so that is what my child wanted to be recognized for, his energy and his being, and and the fact that he knew that at like 9 is ridiculous. And I didn't know that, and I felt, again, out of depth, out of like, oh my gosh, like inappropriate as a parent. And so for me, that was my learning. And so then after a while, he didn't want any gender whatsoever, and he wanted to be called Owl. So we went to get his name changed and everything. And I know that sounds crazy, but I'm sharing this for a reason, because look, I'm going to just say this. I'm Afro-Latina from the Bronx. You don't placate your kids like that. In fact, I have like a chancla on standby. There's like all kinds of stuff. This is not the stuff that you don't give your kids clout over how you parent. And so for me, it was very challenging for me to accept that I needed to be in a position where I heard what my child not only wanted, but that they needed for themselves. Because I'm not with my kid 24/7. I'm not with my kid at school. I don't know how my kid identifies with kids at school. Sorry, I think my camera is like sagging on me here. So much for the stand. So sorry, guys. But anyway, these are human problems.
Exactly.
We welcome the human problems. I'm having a human problem myself. I have to go get my charger. Not very professional of me, but I will be right back.
We'll get it. Go ahead.
So, the weird thing is that with my kid, we went to get the name changed, and my kid wanted to legally change their name to Owl, because owls, and again, this is what he said. He's like, owls are, if you look at them, you can't tell if they're boy or girl. And at first, admittedly, I was like, what are we doing? What are we talking about here? And no one understands what I'm going through here, but that's fine. We went, and then the judge took a look at my kids, like, you want to be called Owl? You're, he's like, you have a perfectly good name. And then I looked at the judge, who was, a cisgendered white male. And then that's when I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, as a parent, this is my duty. It's my charge. Like, who is this person to think that they can say anything about it? And the second I said something to the judge, right, I wasn't nasty. I wasn't mean-spirited. I was like, listen, this is my kid's choice. I said that, and something changed inside me. And then my kid at that moment looked at me. I was like, you know what? I don't want to change my name. I'm just going to keep my name for now. And it was crazy. And then, we went through the motions. We did the paperwork. We did everything. We were at the courthouse, literally inside the courtroom. And the second I saw that judge's face, and that judge is basically like society and like the pressures, this instinct kicked in, because it's not, I hate to say it, I will admit it. It was not easy, and I wasn't the warmest, fuzziest person. But I had a lot of friends, but
in that moment, your son saw that you accepted it, you supported it, you had his back.
Yep.
And he's like, and so now he's a freedom to be himself.
Yeah, which was crazy to me. And I just want to add something about parents out there, because it wasn't that long ago, even though I have a trans son, it wasn't was maybe within the last 5 years, and my son is 19 now. It was within the last 5 years that I found out, and it sounds really silly what I'm about to say, because it's not my lived experience. But I found out that the runaway rate for children, for trans kids, is extremely, extremely high, and even the homeless rate, and even the mortality rate after they become homeless. And I didn't know, right? And I'm hanging out with a group of my friends, and we were in a very particular, we were doing this thing for Hollywood, and it was like very LGBTQIA positive, and it was just, you know, we were doing that thing, and we were all sharing, and I was schooled. I learned so much. And once I learned about the homelessness rate, and I thought about what is happening at home. Our parents literally pushing kids out the door. And I think that's part of it, but I think that the other part of it is the mental health, and the and that's why organizations like GLAAD, you know, GLAAD, and GLISTEN, GLSEN. GLISTEN is an advocate for youth that are in school, you know, the K through 12 school system, and helps them advocate for their educational rights. But there is a guide on both the GLAAD website, and there's like all these, I'll send you guys the links, so that way maybe we can, on the bottom or whatever. But it's actually a guide to pronouns, right? Like what I should have said is, my name is Yasmine Campbell, and my pronouns, you know, are she and her. And so the thing is, in order for the LGBTQI community to feel seen and heard, it's always good for cisgendered people like ourselves to also.
Because I've been seeing that in salutations and emails, and I'm like, this is interesting.
Yeah. And you know, and we didn't have to do that. And let me just tell you something. As a writer, whenever I encounter an individual that refers to themselves as a they, and I'm writing this down, and it's, again, I have to take a moment to stop. Maybe not as much as I used to, because, you know, for me grammatically it doesn't make sense. But you know what? Here's the thing about that. You know, the dictionary is always being you know, updated, and so can our language. It's not such a hard thing. It's not such a hard concept anymore. All we have to do is, you know, I mean, there are guidelines and ways to really make sure that we are respectful to individuals who identify with, you know, with whether it's gender or gender nonconforming. And you know, and it's interesting because to some degree, my son will argue, and he'll continue to argue with me, even though we raised him. He'll say, no, I was always trans. I was always male. And I'll say, well, there was that one time where you didn't want to be male or female. And then there was that one time when you did this. And to be honest, even with his own recollection, because of gender dysphoria and because of I have to allow him to have his own narrative. Even as a parent, having gone through that with him, I have to realize that's part of his growth. And so arguing, it doesn't, you know, even though my recollection is differs from him,
it doesn't matter, right?
Exactly. It does not matter.
His story, yeah,
exactly.
So we touched on this in the beginning and now, but just to kind of wrap this up in a sense is, you know, I want to keep talking about this for hours, but whether you're a parent or a human, it's time to step into the conversation. And even if, like you were saying, if it's a language you don't speak, then it's time to get educated, right? So we will provide the resources that you shared as well to start reading, but also to, like, it's kind of permission to step into the conversation. Because often it's a lack of education why people not necessarily be hateful, but just don't have the conversation because you're embarrassed. Just like, you know, going to another country, speaking another language, you're like, I don't know it good enough. So
wrong, right?
Yeah.
But
I don't want to look silly.
Yeah. I don't want to get off the conversation until we address you and your emotional roller coaster with your family, with your deeply rooted Latino, you know, how did you find, because, you know, also here at Modern Muse, we're talking about well-being and self-love, and there's also you. There was also you and your family and this whole thing. And as much as this is the conversation is about your son, and I learned a lot, you know, even the Peter Pan, like I would have never, that's so interesting. But talk about you for 5 minutes, and then I want to know how you created space for yourself to go through this with grace, to love your son through it, to talk to your family. And where are you guys now with,
wow.
Yeah. It's been 19 years.
Yeah, that's so loaded. Okay, so it is a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And it still is a roller coaster, because now we're in the phase at 19 where he's looking for a more serious type of significant other. And I have to say that during the pandemic, dating apps are not really there for the LGBTQAI community, but more specifically for trans males. That's a whole nother situation. But just to address your question, at first, when my son was his form before transitioning, and he was gay, or I guess technically a lesbian at that time. It wasn't, I was like, oh, okay. You know, I just remembered, I'm only speaking from my experience. For us, for the family, I mean, we opened our doors. We would have, you know, his girlfriends over. We would take them on like family outings. And, you know, it wasn't, because that right there wasn't so harsh to accept. Where it started to get difficult was when the talks of transitioning, because that's when we had to get more help and we had to call upon the medical professionals. Because when you go to you know, a trans positive community, and that opens up for you, there are many people at many various different stages of transitioning. And it's weird because some medical professionals, they don't discourage you, but they just tell you how, they give you all the ugly stuff first. And by ugly stuff, I mean all the hype. There's a lot of maintenance. And that's why it's so important for people, for trans people to have medical insurance, you guys. Like what's happening right now in the White House, what was undone and now being like, LGBTQI rights are so important. Without having medical coverage, we are literally giving our trans community a death sentence. I am so fortunate. Well, fortunate in a way, but like I said, I always over prepare. And so we have medical insurance and all that, but without it, our son, you know, it's very in depth. So, the one thing I would say is there was this Laverne Cox played a role in Orange is the New Black, and was one of her breakout roles. But there was this one, I forget what season it was, I think season 3 or something, where because she was in prison, she couldn't receive her, you know, her estrogen, and so she started reverting, you know, and
I remember that.
Yeah, and and it was heartbreaking, you know. Nobody can, and Laverne Cox just happens to be a twin, and so when she reverted, her twin brother was the one that played that. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but watch that episode. It's heartbreaking, right, in so many ways. And so for us, it was about not only that type of maintenance, you know, that wasn't the hard part. The gender dysphoria, when you have a child that is trying to figure out who they are, they're fighting for their survival. They're fighting everybody. They'll fight you. They'll fight you to, even though you're loving them, even though you're trying like crazy. And what I will share is there are tons of books out there, and one of my friends is an author of these books. It's like, oh, you have to be a parent before your ego. And yes, I get that. That's fine. That's true. But at some point, if you have multiple kids in a family and you have a child who has gender dysphoria, who is so at odds with themselves that they wreak havoc in the home emotionally and disturb everything. It was the hardest thing for me to do. I had to send my kid away, but it wasn't owing just to the gender dysphoria. It was also because, you know, my kid was a screenager, and it didn't matter how many screens we took away. He always was around another person's screen. So there's that. But we had to send him away. He went away for like a year to a school, another place. It was one of the most healthiest things for us as a family. You know, of course we visited him, but he immediately saw that he wasn't, you know, he didn't have access to certain things anymore. And we saw that how we missed him and what we could have done better. It was a time for reflection. Sometimes you need that quiet. So the self-care aspect of it is that even though at that point, we'd gone to like family therapy, individual therapy. We did all kinds of therapy, and we were therapied out. And honestly, the therapist was like sick of us. Like, that's what I'm pretty sure. We're like,
therapied out
again, huh?
But again, this is a place of privilege, right? Like, there are people that don't have the therapy. They can't even send their kids away. So like, what do? You know, if you have and we did this for a while too. If a relative, like one summer we sent my kid went out to my sister, my younger sister, and that energy matched well for a while. Then my sister was like, okay, you gonna take him back because I'm spent, and it's okay. But like, if you have somebody who can just be with your kid for a little bit, just don't close the door on them, you know, like don't shut them out. You know, I mean, the world is so hard already. And just imagine discovering for yourself that you're this individual that presents differently outside to what the world sees. It sucks. Like I was like, what am I gonna wear, you know, for this interview? I was like freaking out, right? Like trying all these clothes on, like what lipstick should I wear? You know, like
right.
Imagine like not, and I hate to minimize it that way, but if I took the care and the time to see this, like I just my kid, it's hard. It's not, you know, it's heartbreaking. And so how I came to cope with it as a writer, I was like, I'm just gonna highlight the funny parts of this. I'm gonna highlight the silly parts. Like one story was when we were so before you can have your gender reassignment surgery, if you're going female to male, we have to go through therapy and talk to doctors. And I remember, so my husband is usually like very fit, but he was having some dad bods, right? He had like a little pudgy, like he has like soft tummy, and you know, he was losing his hair, and he has like this fine blonde hair, so he was losing it. And so my kid is like a smart mouth and was always like talking crap about us. And so we get him back sometimes, but I remember he'd always have a comment to say about, you know, about his dad's like, and I should say we're a blended family. So his bio dad is not my current husband or anything. I say current, like this is out the door. Well, if he doesn't know, well,
I've got the next one lined up, but the current one.
Yeah, exactly. No, but so we are a blended family. So there's that added. There's a lot, guys. And so, but the thing is, I remember when we were going through, we were consulting with the doctor. The doctor looks at my son right in the eyes and is like, okay, so you do know what testosterone does, right? Ooh. He's like, yeah, it's gonna give me facial hair. I'm gonna have muscles. He's like, yes, all those things. If you go to the gym, if you do this, and if you keep yourself up, if not, you're gonna have a fat belly and a bald head. And then we look, and then it's like, and then my husband, and he's not ugly or anything. Like this is what he looks like.
You're so funny.
Like this is what he looks like, right?
I'm
like,
sure he's good.
No. There's a reason. My vanity won't, you know, I have to say this. So husband goes like, oh my gosh, so you're going to look like me. In the end, you're going to look exactly like me, like the epitome of the male, you know, like the perfect male, you know, with balding and with a fat belly. And then my kid's like, what? Like, but I want to look like Chris Hemsworth. I don't want to look like, I want to look like him.
His vision was something else.
Exactly. I'm like, well, I want to look like Beyonce, but I don't think, you know what I mean? But like, look what happened, you know, and like, nah, you know, like, oops. And so to me, like, there's more of those funny things. And there's also the fact that he comes to me all the time for how to act like a male. I'm like, well, you have your stepdad right there. Why aren't you asking him? Like, I don't know why he comes to me for male advice. Like, but again, you know, unshaven legs or whoever, right? Like, it's like a demeanor thing. So there's more of that, of those stories, and there are, you know, the same old tired, sad stories. Although the sad stories are there, but I think that how I coped with it is just writing about the humor and writing about the sharing about it and learning about things together, and also about, you know, really accepting each other. This is a new person. My son has facial hair now. I don't, you know, I raised a daughter. And I was bitter for a while. I didn't know this, but I was mourning my daughter. I don't have my little girl anymore. And you know, but he's a human being. I love him, right? I don't know this person as much, you know, he doesn't even know this person yet. And he's learning to love himself. So I have to be there for him. You know, that's our duty as parents. It's not to, you know, it's not just for our own, you know, and I was so immature. Like, but I wasn't. It's weird because like I'm like on the better side, but I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I still have this duty. I can't sleep on this. I have to get better. I have to educate myself
on this. Yeah.
Well, and like you said, it's allowing your child and yourself to discover more about who you are. And as a child who's brave enough and has the courage to share that and step through that, like, what a remarkable human being. You know, I think a lot of people go through life afraid to tap into who they truly are, you know, whatever outside of gender, just the essence of who they are. So it's, your story blows me away, because I think you've done an incredible job parenting, and your willingness to be so vulnerable with us today is not only changed my perspective, but I think is going to change a lot of people's ideas of how they're showing up for their children, for their friends, and for their families. So thank you so incredibly much.
Yeah, Jasmine, thank you so much. I learned a lot today. I think this is a conversation that we should have more often here on Modern Muse. We'd love to have you again, maybe on another panel with other people, because I think there's so much more still that we can tap into. But thank you. You look beautiful. Your lipstick was
means so much coming from you guys.
You don't care about your unshaven legs.
I wanted to add one thing. I was actually on the GLSEN website yesterday, and they have a day of silence. Well, I don't know if it's just them, but they talk about it. It's coming up April 23rd. And that is a day of silence to honor how silenced the LGBTQIA plus community has been, most specifically in education and within schools. So we will be honoring it. Maybe this is a good day to share parts of this interview, and we will also share all of the resources that you shared, because it's so cool.
In closing, Jasmine, will you also share if you have any information from the political health insurance aspect of it? Because I'm having some conversations with some political voices, and I would love to also talk and include that in the conversation. Just where we are with health insurance and what the White House is currently doing, not doing, and where we need to shine a light on in that aspect.
Yes, thank you. So part of this struggle that we're having is to create a sort of blanketed health insurance that is good from state to state. So across all 50 states and territories and stuff. And right now, where we're hitting sort of a wall is the legislature continues to change, obviously, from state to state. And so there's a lot of, we're proposing a bunch, and I don't mean like we as in, I'm like no longer active in that aspect. Of course, I am, active with senators supporting the right, the right, representatives and things like that. And when it comes to, you know, passing like local laws. Like that's the power that we have. And of course it's no secret, but I was on the educational committee for Biden and Harris, but what's happening currently is that we're still trying to work on what that looks like across each state, again, where it continues to be an issue. And I can, you know, again, like share more specifically with
please do. That's what I meant. Share
legislature and where that is. But it doesn't look good, at least for most, you know, states. Unfortunately, it's southern states, and anyway, that's always a thing. But one thing that I want to highlight is exactly like it was a lot of what I went through with my son and continue to go through, and where we are now is it wasn't easy, and it was filled with lots and lots of therapists, lots of think of like the worst stuff, and I'm here today like seriously think of the worst stuff, and like think of the craziest like Lifetime like movie you can think of like that, like that's kind of what it is. And but it's not like, don't despair, hope isn't lost. It's like, try to take it a day at a time and breathe through it. And it doesn't nobody has the answers. I still don't have the answers. My kid doesn't have the answers. We just have each other to support each other. That's all that can happen. That is it. Like, there is no right way to parent your kid, except for please just hear them out and love them. Right. My friend Ashley Marie Preston, she's at Ashley as ASHLEE, Marie Preston. She's a trans woman. She was on Dr. Phil last week, and trying to help a parent understand their trans daughter, and the parent didn't take that well, you know. And I mean, it's pretty obviously like it's all over the place, but and then the parent sort of went off and started saying all these negative things. So as a parent, you know, when we feel out of depth, when we feel like we don't have the resources, and then you have somebody else telling you how to parent, like that's going to bring out the ugly, grisly mama bear in you, right?
Yeah.
So that's not what any of this is. All this is like, if you have a whether it's LGBTQIA plus, you know, person in your family, don't shut the door on them. You know, make sure that you allow space for yourself to just come to terms with who you are. And because I thought I was different. I thought I would be different, and I wasn't. I was the same. I was like everybody else. I was just the same. But, you know, it was you know, because in the end of the day, no matter how understanding I thought I was, but even by comparison, I still was not allowing my son to be his full self. So if you can come to terms with yourself, and then allow your child to go somewhere else temporarily, even if it's like with a relative or anybody else, or even let them stay at their friend's house, just don't tighten the reins. Just let it go. Like, it sounds crazy because it's like, you don't let go as a parent. It's, you know, you just have to let them be the human that they are, you know. It's, you know, obviously if it's self-harm or something like that, then that's a different story, but, or, you know, just you got to be there. Again, it's not easy. It's and I did not get here like all smooth or anything. Trust me. Like it put a strain on my health, on my family, on my marriage, on my relationship with my other kid. Everything, again, anything that the worst, guys, it all happened. It all happened.
But you're here to tell the story.
Yes. Resilience is a thing. So.
And resilience, we use that word a lot.
Yeah.
Will you also please thank your son? He was going to join us today, but he's at school or had something going on. But thank him for allowing you to be so open and tell your story as well. And I can't wait to meet him someday.
Yeah. Thank you both so much. Thank you.
Again.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. We will revisit the conversation with other people, and we appreciate you so much. Have a beautiful
Yes.
day.
Oh, thank you guys.